Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my Winter 2019 quarterly wrap-up. This is part of my AuthorTube output, where every quarter I hold myself accountable to the goals I set in the last one, and I set new ones, and I also talk a bit about what I've been up to in the writing world in the last 3 months. So I'm getting this video up on the first day of the new quarter, but it's not that big of a deal. I'll wait till later to judge myself harshly. But I don't want to ramble on forever here. I want to get into my topics, so here we go. Well, my big output for the quarter really happened in the last 3 days, for the most part, where I attended the Maryland Writers Association annual conference. I talked in my last wrap-up video about joining this association after deliberating for years and being silly and not doing it for years, and I finally decided it would be a good step for my writing, particularly for this conference, and I was right. It was a wonderful conference. It was really amazing. There were agents there, and even though I wasn't pitching anything, they had panels and went over pitches and talked about what worked and what didn't work, including Chuck Sambucino, who was really well known and is still really well known. He used to write for Writer's Digest. That's how I first knew about him. There were also a bunch of workshops, and I feel like I learned a lot more in the workshops than I thought I would, because I've been attending writing workshops of various sorts for years. But I mean, I always get something out of them, even if it's repetitive. But in this case, I think a lot of it had new information in it, and I scribbled a lot of notes that of course I won't be able to read anymore because of my handwriting. Here's a couple of the ones that stood out to me. We had one about fantasy and science fiction world building, and that one particularly was with a bunch of teens, because there's a big teen component of the association, and it was really exciting to see so many teens there, and the organizers even had something with them with a couple of the agents a little later, so that was great. And of course, you know, fantasy is so in for middle grade and YA, but it was just really great to have that conversation with them and with our presenter, E.J. Wenstrom, who wrote a couple of fantasy novels that actually sound intriguing to me because they have that theological element. I read a theological series earlier this year, and I have some Jewish content that's inspiring my own fantasy novel. So anyway, that intrigued me. And also she published with a small press, so that intrigues me too. And it's just fascinating to see the ways that people can garner success even without the big publishers and all of that, even though obviously that's something a lot of people strive for. So I'll link to her author page down below, because I do think I'd be intrigued to try her books. Also, there was another presenter, Harry St. Ars, who did a big presentation on science fiction writers throughout the years inventing the future, which was less about, you know, learning the craft and more about venerating the greats of yesteryear and of current year to a certain degree too, and his presentation was really fun, and his own books kind of sounded interesting too, so I might have to check those out as well. So I'll link him down below. And finally, this morning I did my final breakout session on Points of View with another author, but he's also a developmental editor with The Writer's Alley, so I'll show you his card, and we also have this POV handout about different POV viewpoints, so it was nice to get a handout too, and I participated a lot in that discussion, and you know, bit my nails a bit about the idea of a developmental editor, which, you know, is so helpful to the novel or to the project, but can be so expensive, so you really have to plan for it. But still, I joined the mailing group, and I'll link down to their website too. There was so much else going on with the conference too. Here's the bag, and we got, you know, of course we got our freebies of the big magazines. And perhaps most importantly, I really should learn how to use these properly like a good writer, but we got these little stickies for manuscripts. There were numerous raffles, and a bunch of people had their books in the ad hoc bookstore that the organization ran, and, you know, everything from bigger presses to self-published, and I actually bought a self-published book by one of the members to, you know, wanting to support a local author. They gave out awards for an anthology that they did about their 30th anniversary, and they're going to have another big agent come in October to talk to us about the art of writing fiction, and also many chapters are very active, including my own chapter, and I talked in my last Author's Answer video about my first Montgomery County chapter meeting, which was great, and I'm certainly looking forward to going to more sessions there, so even without this conference, this is really going to be a great fit for me. I really think so. I'm feeling really optimistic. It was a smaller con, I guess. Well, it seemed like a relatively small con, but there was still so much going on, and everyone was so friendly. I was there alone, but I always found people to talk to, and we were all interested in each other's work, and just patting each other on the back, especially us newbies. So it was really great. But to veer into another section now, I like to dedicate a little bit of time in these videos to my blogging, because it's a substantial part of my writing output, even though I'm mostly focused in fiction in these videos. But I maintain 3 blogs, and I write usually at least 1 post a month in each of them, so I figured I would pick out my 3 favorites for this quarter. So I'll start with Jewish DC, which is my local cultural blog about Jewish events happening in my backyard. And in February, I attended a talk with Deborah Lipstadt, who I'd admired for a while, and I certainly wanted to give her writing a try. And lo and behold, her book tour took her to a local synagogue, and she talked a bit about her book, about modern anti-Semitism, and in general talked about modern anti-Semitism and where it comes from. I found it really informative, and it's kind of a relief to look at things head on rather than get all worked up about them in a way, and I got my book signed, and it was really a lot of fun. In that same vein, for Chava's Footsteps, that's a broader blog I do about issues that pop into my head, sometimes about pop culture issues and sometimes about Jewish issues. And something that's been in my head for a long time is really BDS, the Boycott, Divest, Sanctions movement. I should say outright that I don't support it. I don't support any academic and cultural boycotts, because I think it puts the emphasis in the wrong place, and that it takes away from the idea of empathy. But at the same time, I'm worried about some of the pushback about going after people who support BDS and about freedom of speech. So I had a lot on my plate with that, and a lot on my plate with a lot of other progressive issues around anti-Semitism. And I took basically all of February to write this post and try to get my feelings out and do the research, and I'm really pretty happy. I'm happy with the result. I think it was a great way for me to work through all of this stuff that was causing a lot of internal angst, and to get to a better place with it, and hopefully put out a good piece of writing too, and I'll link it down below. And finally, in my reading and writing blog, I just posted this. I'd drafted it a little earlier, but I finally posted it because I did in March an F. Scott Fitzgerald reading project, where I read the 3 novels I had left of the 4 that he published in his lifetime, and I ranked them and talked about what I thought of them and what I kind of thought about his legacy overall, so I'll link that down below too. Okay, on to the meat and potatoes of this video, where I hash over my winter goals and see if I met them, or see if I need to be taken to task. So my first goal was to re-edit my novel, The Corners, in what I called the de-dramatized edition, based on some feedback I got from my mother, and mostly a win. It seems like such a cop-out, doesn't it? But basically, I have gone over every chapter, but my Lena chapters I haven't yet entered into the computer. Also, as I went through this quarter, I decided I wanted to take part in the Maryland Writers Association's Novel Exchange, another great thing that they do, where after you've written and edited your novel and, you know, shared it piecemeal with your critique group, they will try to find somebody who will read the whole thing and give feedback, and then you'll read their stuff and give feedback. So I've just, I want to email and see if I can, you know, swap the corners for something and get feedback on the corners as a whole work. But I haven't done it yet because I haven't had all the edits in the computer yet, but it's going to happen very, very soon. Yes, yes. Number 2 is that I participated in a February NaNoWriMo with my writing group, and my personal goal was to write every day of the month, and that didn't happen. I wrote almost every day of the month, but I didn't write every day. I don't really like this goal. That's not usually how I pursue writing. I mean, even with traditional NaNoWriMo, you know, it's all about the word count, so if you miss a day, you just make it up the next day. I don't know. It turned into a really weird month for me because I was still in the middle of editing The Corners, and I didn't feel like I was ready to move on to other fiction writing projects, so I was working on other stuff, but it didn't feel the same. So it was a weird month, but I did get some stuff done. I got to sort of do word counts for my normal writing and see how much it often takes. But I didn't meet the goal of every day. And number 3 was to edit my recent short story, Jewish Adult, and that one's a yes! I did do that! And I even shared it with my writing group, although we've had trouble meeting regularly, so I emailed it to them and I got feedback from one of them. So that's something, and I'll put that in, and then hopefully I can share it with a couple of other people too. But yes, that's a win. That one's a win, but overall, it's a no. So I gotta pay the piper.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
Yeesh, I'm glad she won't be around for the final season of Game of Thrones at least, starting in a couple weeks, see? Anyway. Okay, and to wrap things up, I'm looking forward to my spring 2019 quarter, and I'm setting my goals for myself. Number 1 is that April is Camp Nano, so I thought I would use this month to once again tackle my fantasy project. I want to get some good outlining in, and if it's not, you know, plot outlining, I would love to do some of that, but I also want to make sure I do some character outlining, because I think once I know my secondary characters, I'll feel much better about attacking the plot of the story too. But definitely I want to be substantially further along, so I better show you some character sketches and some plot sketches, yes. Number 2 is to finish and send off my short story, Jewish Adult. I wrote this short story for a contest that is taking place in Rehoboth, which opened at the beginning of March. And I'm very excited because this year's theme is about dreams, and without knowing that, I actually have a dream in my story, so hopefully that'll work in my favor. I'll link to that contest down below. I have until July to submit, but I want to submit it a lot sooner than that, but first I gotta get it into tip-top shape. Number 3 is something significantly different. I'm calling it my Padma story, and it feels particularly weird to give into this right after coming back from the MWA conference, where they talk so much about giving your all to getting published and getting paid and that sort of thing. But this Padma story is something very personal, something I want to write to share with a couple of friends only. It's based on a collaborative writing project we did. It's not something I can make uber public, but it's very personally meaningful to me, and I feel like I should allow myself to say that writing should still be personally meaningful. It's not only about fame and money. Especially not when you write literary fiction, but... So I'm not going to shame myself about this goal unless I don't meet it, but it's going to be important to me, and I think it'll be meaningful to some friends as well, so I'm going to put it in for this quarter. So that about wraps it up for me now. I got plenty of things I want to jump into this month, plenty of videos and plenty of thematic things. It's, you know, National Poetry Month, and I'm in the middle of the BookTube Prize readathon that I did, that I crafted for myself, and other reading goals that I crafted for myself, and then of course I have these writing goals too, self, that I have to stay on top of. And I'm certainly looking forward to getting to the Montgomery County MWA chapter meetings this quarter. I think I'll be reporting back on what I learned there, and there's some other things happening around town too that'll be great for writers, and I hope to make it to some of those, so stay tuned. I hope to be talking about a lot of great stuff at the end of the spring. Oh, I love spring. I'm so happy that it's finally spring. So thanks for watching, everyone. Keep writing, and I'll see you next time.